Hello everyone, this is Prerna Bhutra from Make Medical Easy. I'm a final year MBBS student and in this video I'm trying to cover the basics of dermatology. So let's begin. Now we first start by understanding the anatomy of skin. So skin consists of three layers: epidermis, dermis and subcutaneous fat. So starting from above, it's epidermis, dermis and subcutaneous fat, which is also known as hypodermis. Now the epidermis to dermis ratio is 1:10, which means if epidermis is 1 centimeter, the dermis is going to be 10 times thicker than the epidermis. Now the epidermis and dermis, they are connected, or in between the epidermis and dermis is something which is called as dermoepidermal junction, which is present. Now this dermoepidermal junction is something which is connecting the epidermis and dermis. Now we also need to understand what we mean by rete-ridge and papillae. So rete-ridge is the part of the epidermis which dips into the dermis is called as rete-ridge. So this darker pink is the rete-ridge, while papillae is the part of the dermis which projects into the epidermis. So this kinds of forms an interlocking pattern which ensures that the skin is held together. So you see, remember, when we move our skin or even hold our skin, it acts as a unit. We are not going to feel epidermis or dermis separately. But there's something called as Nikolsky sign, which is seen in blistering diseases. Now in conditions where there are blisters or some kind of separation present, in those conditions, when we put a tangential pressure on skin, it results in the movement between epidermal layers. And this movement between epidermal layers is the sign is known as Nikolsky sign. Nikolsky sign is normally not present. It is only seen in some blistering diseases, okay? Because otherwise skin acts as a unit. You cannot feel different layers when you move or when you put a tangential pressure on the skin. Now, we'll start with each layer individually. So we'll talk about each layers individually now. So starting with subcutaneous fat or the hypodermis. Now subcutaneous fat is also known as panniculus. So its inflammation would be panniculitis. Now this subcutaneous fat consists of lobules which contain adipocytes, and these lobules are separated via this fibrous septa. Now within this fibrous septa is the presence of some blood vessels which is going to supply blood to these lobules. And the next layer above the hypodermis will be dermis. Now dermis there are two layers in dermis: reticular dermis and papillary dermis. So reticular dermis, as the name suggests, is made up of reticular fibers, which means basically straight fibers, while papillary dermis is made up of papillary part of the dermis. It consists of papilla. So this is the papillary dermis, this is your reticular dermis. Now the dermis is formed by collagen and elastin fibers. The type of collagen which we find in dermis is type 1 and type 3 in a ratio of 8:1. Apart from these fibers, it also consists of few cells, out of which the dermal dendritic cell is very important because it is the antigen presenting cell which is present in the dermis. Now the topmost layer that we need to understand is the epidermis. Now epidermis itself is made up of 4 different layers. So starting from below, if you see, this is your yellow color is the dermoepidermal junction. So starting from below upwards, you have stratum basale, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum and stratum corneum. Now the entire body, our whole body consists of an epidermis which has only 4 layers, except palms and soles, which consist of 5 epidermal layers. So the additional layer is the stratum lucidum. Now as the name suggests, lucid, it consists of the word lucid. Lucid basically means clear. So it is called as lucidum because when we stain the skin and see under microscope, we see a clear zone present between stratum corneum and stratum granulosum, and hence we call it as stratum lucidum. But it is only seen in palms and soles. Now we'll try to understand each layer separately. So we'll break each layer. So let us start with stratum corneum. Stratum means layer, corneum means keratin. So this is the most keratinized layer that you have. So it has the maximum amount of keratin, which is a protein which is going to provide strength to the skin. Now the reason why skin requires strength is because skin is under a lot of pressure. Like when you wear watch, when we wear jewelry, or even when we hold pen or sit, skin has some amount of pressure on it. So for that pressure to disperse, we need keratin, right? It is something which is going to disperse that pressure and provide strength to the skin. Now stratum corneum is the thickest of all layer. It is dead, non-nucleated, which means it is not going to divide also. The next layer below stratum corneum is stratum granulosum. Stratum granulosum, again, it means it is a layer which has granules. So the granules are nothing but keratohyalin granules which are present in it, and it is the thinnest of all layers. Now the layer below stratum granulosum is stratum spinosum. So again, by the word spinosum, we know that it is a layer which has maximum amount of spines. Now remember, all the 4 layers have spines, but the maximum number is present in stratum spinosum. Now this, by spines, what we mean is desmosomes. Now these desmosomes are intercellular junctions present in the cell, in keratinocytes. And the last layer is stratum basale, which is the basal layer. It is the most metabolically active layer, which means it is highly proliferating layer and has a very large nucleus. And the cells in stratum basale are columnar. Now see, we use stratum spine, like we called stratum spinosum and stratum basale together as Malpighian layer. Now see, what we need to understand is, to understand this figure, you need to know that this curved line below, just follow my pointer, this curved line below represents the dermo-epidermal junction, and this, and the straight line above represents the epidermis, the epidermis. So if you go the uppermost layer of epidermis, so if we go from below upwards, these are the 4 layers that we'll see: stratum basale, spinosum, granulosum, and corneum. Now as we go from below upwards, you will see that there is an increase in the keratin, the amount of keratin that the skin has, and so maximum being in stratum corneum. And as we move ahead, we also see that there's a decrease in the nucleus size, which means stratum basale has the largest nucleus, while stratum corneum has no nucleus at all. Now an important thing that we need to understand is something called as transit time or turnover time. So see, from transit time or turnover time is defined as the time which is taken by the cell to go from stratum basale to stratum corneum. See, we know that stratum basale is the dividing layer, right? So it divides, and the cell, as they divide, they move upwards into different layers. So the time which a cell takes to move from stratum basale to stratum corneum is what is known as transit time or turnover time. So normally this is 28 days. Now from the stratum corneum, ultimately the cell is going to shed. There will be desquamation of cells, and this process is known as exfoliation. Now interestingly, normally we cannot see exfoliation. It happens every day. Even now we would be shedding some skin, but this exfoliation is not visible. But in some conditions, when we have a visible exfoliation, it is known as scale. And this visible exfoliation happens in various skin diseases as well as it can also be sometimes seen in winter, as well as when the skin becomes really dry. That time you see the formation of those white scales on the skin. Now before we go ahead, we need to understand some terms that is important to know what do they mean. So see, when we take a biopsy of the skin and stain it and see it under microscope, so this is after that we describe these terms. So see, a thick stratum corneum is called as hyperkeratosis. A thick stratum granulosum is hypergranulosis, while a thick stratum spinosum is called acanthosis. Now see, acanth means spine and lysis means breakdown. So when this breakdown of spine, which means breakdown of desmosome, is what is called as acantholysis. So see, with this we have talked about dermis, we have talked about hypodermis, dermis, and epidermis ke layers. Now we need to understand what are the epidermal cells. So epidermis is basically made of like the majority of epidermal cells are keratinocytes, which basically make up 95%, while the minor cells, which constitute less than 5%, are melanocytes, Langerhans cells, and Merkel cells. So we'll talk about each of them separately, starting with keratinocytes. Again, we already know keratinocytes are the major cells, like they make up most of the epidermis. So all of these cells that you see are keratinocytes. These are derived from ectoderm, and again, keratinocytes, the name has keratin, right? So these are cells which contain keratin, so which is going to provide strength to the skin. And we also know that all of these keratinocytes have desmosomes. So the reason why we call spinous layer spinous is because it is the maximum amount of desmosome. And again, cornified layer of stratum corneum because it is the maximum amount of keratin. All of these layers have keratin, all of these layers have desmosomes in it. The next cell is Merkel cells, which is this blue cell that you can see here. Now, Merkel cells are nothing but touch receptors which are present in stratum basale of the epidermis. The next cell that we'll talk about is melanocytes. Melanocytes are again present in the stratum basale, so it is the basal layer of epidermis which contains melanocytes. Now, these melanocytes are example of dendritic cells, which means they have these finger-like projections coming out. Now, the reason why they have this is because these finger-like projections help in transferring melanin from the melanocytes to the keratinocytes. So, because the melanocytes synthesize melanin, but melanin is required in all cells of the skin because it is going to offer protection to the cell nucleus. So, now this finger-like projections help melanocytes to transfer melanin into keratinocytes. And this forms what is known as an epidermal melanin unit, which means one melanocyte transfers melanin to 36 keratinocytes. Melanocytes make melanin, which is going to provide the skin its color. Melanin decides the shade of the skin. So there are normally, we have type 1 to type 6 skin shades, out of which type 5 is the one which is called as brown and which Indians have. Now see, for making this melanin, melanocyte require an enzyme called as tyrosinase. Tyrosinase is going to convert tyrosin into melanin. Okay, so tyrosinase is an enzyme which converts an amino acid tyrosine into melanin. Now, what is the function of melanocytes? The reason melanocytes are basically nothing but their natural sunscreen that we have in our body. These cells protect the DNA from the UV light damage, which is going to be explained here. See, normally from the sun we get UV rays, and these UV rays are going to cause mutations in the DNA. Right? If there's chronic UV rays exposure, they have the ability to mutate the DNA. And this thing is prevented by melanin, which is a natural sunscreen that we have. Now, this mutation in the DNA, now see, if say for example, we have cells which have very less amount of melanin, or say for example, no melanin at all, which are nothing but empty cells, right? Empty melanocytes or empty keratinocytes. So when these UV rays hit an empty melanocyte, they cause melanoma. While when they hit an empty keratinocyte, they cause squamous cell carcinoma or basal cell carcinoma. Now, since these now see, if you think about it, what does melanin do? It is trying to protect our DNA from any damage, and that is the reason you see all these melanosomes which contain melanin are perinuclear in position, which means they surround the nucleus because they're trying to protect the nucleus from any damage from the UV rays. Now, obviously, we know that stratum corneum has no nucleus. So, obviously, if it has no nucleus, there's going to be no damage from the UV rays, right? So, it does not need melanin, and that is the reason why stratum corneum has no melanin in it. While stratum basale, it has the largest nucleus, and hence it requires the maximum amount of melanin. Now, we have understood three cells till now, right? Which is we started with keratinocytes, then we went towards Merkel cells and melanocytes. The last cell that we need to understand is Langerhans cells. Now, these Langerhans cells are antigen presenting cells. Again, they are an example of dendritic cells, which means they have these extensions, finger-like projections in them, which is really important also because they need them for picking up an antigen, right? So these Langerhans cells, they pick up the antigen which enters the skin. Now, see, this antigen could be anything. It could be an allergen, it could be a malignant cell, it could be a mutated DNA cell which is present in the skin, it could be bacteria, it could be virus, it could be anything. Now, once it picks up this antigen, it is going to go to the lymph node. Now, from within the lymph node, what happens is that Th0 cells are going to recognize these antigen, and depending upon the type of antigen, they are going to divide into either Th1 or Th2 cells. Th1 cells produce T cell mediated immune response, while Th2 produce a B cell, which is an antibody mediated immune response. So now Th1 cells are generally formed in response to viruses, while Th2 is in response to bacteria. Now see, interestingly, if there is a decrease, obviously it is something that we can understand. If there is a decrease in the Langerhans cell function, there are going to be increase in infections and skin cancers. But if there is an increase in Langerhans cell function, which means it is picking up cells which it is not supposed to pick up, then it is going to result in what is known as an autoimmune disease. So see, with this we are done with the anatomy of skin. We know skin has 3 layers and we have talked about each layer separately. Now we'll start with a very important function of skin, which is skin acts as a barrier. Skin is a physical barrier, and by a barrier, what I mean is it is not going to allow the entry or even the exit of anything from its surface. So there could be there'll be no entry, no exit phenomena that skin practices, which means there's going to be no entry of allergen, virus, bacteria, anything, and there's going to be no exit of the moisture into the outer environment. Now this skin what that we're talking about is an intact skin, right? So an intact skin acts as a barrier. Now for the skin to maintain its barrier, there are a lot of components which is actually helping the skin to maintain this barrier function. So the first thing that is very important is the shape of the keratinocyte and the junctions which are present in between them. So remember, in the embryonic stage, these keratinocytes are circular. As they mature, they turn into polygonal keratinocytes. Now, the reason why a circular keratinocyte converts into a polygonal keratinocyte is that these polygonal keratinocytes actually ensure enough packing of the cells, right? See, they're going to ensure a really tight packing and no space in between these cells, and thus forming a barrier. See, one thing that we need to know is that if there is any space in skin which could be caused by any n number of things, it is always filled with fluid that extravasates from the blood vessels. So hence it is very important that these polygonal keratinocytes, because we have polygonal keratinocytes, it ensures that there is no space in between the cells. Now for the cell to maintain this polygonal shape, we require what is known as desmosomes. Now these desmosomes are intercellular junctions which kind of stretch the circular cell into a polygonal cells. Now these desmosomes are made up of a protein called as desmoglin, which is abbreviated as DSG. So anti-DSG antibodies are seen in pemphigus. In pemphigus, which is going to destroy the desmosome. So pemphigus is a disease where we find anti-DSG antibodies, which destroys the desmosome. Now, if there is no desmosome, the polygonal keratinocyte is going to revert to a circular keratinocyte. These circular keratinocytes are known as acantholytic cell. We know acanth means desmosome and lytic means breakdown. So breakdown of desmosome causes the formation of an acantholytic or a circular keratinocyte. Now again, if there is many circular keratinocytes, there will obviously be space in between them. So this space is filled with fluid which results in the formation of a blister in the skin. Now this blister, if it is less than 0.5 centimeter, it is called a vesicle. If it is more than 0.5 centimeter, it is called a bulla. So you have a blister, vesicle and bulla. Now apart from desmosome, there are also various other junctions present in cells like tight junctions, adherent junctions and gap junctions, and a very important one which is hemidesmosome also. Now these hemidesmosome is something that is going to connect the basal keratinocyte to the dermo-epidermal junction. So it connects the basal keratinocyte to your dermo-epidermal junction and is made up of a protein called BP1 protein. So there's a disease called bullous pemphigoid where we have anti-BP1 antibodies which are going to destroy these hemidesmosomes. So we had pemphigoid where we have anti-DSG antibodies and which attack the desmosome, while we have bullous pemphigoid where we have anti-BP1 antibodies which destroy the hemidesmosomes. Now, apart from the shape and the junctions, the other things which are actually other factors which are contributing towards maintaining this barrier function of skin is the intercellular cement present between the keratinocytes. Now, these keratinocytes contain an intercellular cement which basically is made up of lipids and is synthesized by the lamellar body which is present in the keratinocyte. So this is analogous to the cement and brick analogy. So these bricks are nothing but keratinocytes, while the cement is the intercellular lipids that you have. So if there is in a disease called as eczema, there is defective cement. So a defect in the cement causes eczema. Eczema is also known as dermatitis. The last factor which is important is filaggrin and calcium. So now see, this orange box is a keratinocyte. Now within this keratinocyte, obviously we know there will be keratin present. Now these keratin filaments are connected to each other with the help of a protein called as filaggrin. So this filaggrin, while by connecting keratin, again makes sure that the skin has its strength. So for the normal functioning of this filaggrin as well as desmosome, we require calcium. and hence you will see that every keratinocyte has a calcium ATPase pump, and this calcium ATPase pump is going to pump calcium inside the keratinocyte, which is important for the normal functioning of filaggrin and desmosome. So if in a disease like Hailey-Hailey and Darier's, we have mutation of calcium ATPase pump, so obviously there will be no calcium income like coming inside the cell, and if there is no calcium, it is going to interfere with the normal functioning of filaggrin and desmosome, thus causing, because there will be no desmosome, the cells will again convert into circular keratinocytes, and because of non-functioning filaggrin, we'll have less strength that the skin can take. So there will be decrease in strength as well as there will be circular keratinocytes. So this mutation in the calcium ATPase pump is present since birth, and it results in it is seen in diseases like Hailey-Hailey and Darier's. So we've talked about 4 diseases till now: pemphigus, bullous pemphigoid, eczema, Hailey-Hailey and Darier's disease. Now the last part that we need to understand is the dermoepidermal junction. We've talked about dermis, we've talked about the anatomy of skin, we've talked about how skin maintains its barrier function. Now the dermoepidermal, we need to understand the anatomy of dermoepidermal junction. And this dermoepidermal junction is going to connect your dermis with the epidermis. Now it consists of 2 parts, lamina lucida and lamina densa. As the name suggests, lucid means it is clearer, right? So this lamina lucida is much clearer, and it is made up of anchoring filaments. These anchoring filaments contain laminin, BP1 and BP2 proteins, while lamina densa is much denser, and lamina densa is connected below to the dermis with the help of something called as lamina densa is connected below with the help of anchoring fibers to the dermis. So anchoring filaments are present in lamina lucida, while lamina densa is connected to the dermis with the help of anchoring fibers, which is made up of only one protein, that is collagen 7. So anchoring filament has 3 proteins, BP1, BP2 and laminin, while anchoring fibers have only one protein, which is collagen 7. Now this view that we are seeing is an electron microscopy view, right? So with this we'll see on electron microscope. So normally if we see a skin specimen under simple microscope, we'll not be able to distinguish between lamina lucida and densa, because dermoepidermal junction is a very thin layer, and you will not be even like, you'll just see one curvy line which we'll not be able to distinguish whether which is lucid and which is densa. So to do that, what we do is we do a salt split technique. That is, we put the skin in a salt solution. Now when we put a skin into the salt solution, it causes separation of the lucida and the densa. Now this technique is used to identify the level at which the pathology of the skin is present on simple microscopy. Like if the pathology is present above the lamina lucida, we'll be able to see that, or whether it is present below the lamina densa. Okay, now before we conclude our session, there are some terms that we need to be clear, because we will be using them a lot as we go ahead into the diseases of dermat. So the first thing that you need to know is macule. Macule is a flat skin lesion. Papule is an elevated lesion which is less than 5 mm. Nodule is again an elevated lesion which is more than 5 mm, which has depth, which means which has some height. Plaque is again an elevated skin lesion which without any depth, more than 5 mm in size but without any depth. Pustule is a vesicle which has cloudy or purulent fluid within it. Now, very important phenomena is that we need to understand is Koebner's phenomena or isomorphic phenomena. So, Koebner's phenomena or isomorphic phenomena is nothing but it is the appearance of skin lesions on the line of trauma. So, let us assume this was the original lesion that the patient had, and he had a lot of itching here. So, he scratched. Now, the moment he scratches, obviously there are going to be linear traumas present on the skin. So, the same lesion will start appearing in the entire line of scratch later on. So that is what is known as isomorphic or Koebner's phenomena. So iso means similar and morphic means morphology. So since this lesion has a similar morphology, we call it as an isomorphic phenomena. Now it is seen in autoimmune diseases as well as certain viral conditions. Now if it is seen in autoimmune diseases, it is called as true Koebner's phenomena, which is seen in psoriasis, lichen planus and vitiligo. While false Koebner's phenomena is seen in viral conditions like HPV, that is human papilloma virus, and molluscum. So thank you, and with this we conclude the basics of dermat. So you need to just, in this video I've just tried to cover the skin aspect of the basics of dermat. There are some things which are not covered, which are nail, hair and admixture, which will be covered when we talk about their diseases, so that we can correlate at that time. So thank you so much and for your time, and please do like, share, comment and subscribe. Thank you.